Hi, this is FUAD ABASOV, a broker with Right at Home Realty, and this is your monthly real estate statistics. With the fall market upon us, we anticipate a resurgence of activity following the summer slowdown. However, the coming months will present both opportunities and challenges for buyers and sellers alike. Toronto home prices rose in September, but sluggish sales and a surge of new listings could be tilting the market back in favor of buyers. If you find yourself in the fortunate position of qualifying for the home you desire, I advise you to be selective. Until recently, we didn't have enough inventory overall, but September brought a greater supply of homes, so there are quite a few to choose from. New listings are up strongly on a year-over-year basis from the extremely low level in September 2022. So, don't hesitate to exercise patience and selectivity in your home search, as buyers may benefit from more negotiating power, at least for time being. I'm a phone call away if you seek expert advice. The recent trend of slowing sales and rising new listings continued in September. This presents an opportunity for buyers, although many of them seem to stick to the sidelines until there is more evidence that interest rates are indeed finally at the top. This, combined with sellers who do not need to sell, means the market will likely remain on the slower side until next year. All eyes now on the Bank of Canada. If interest rates remain the same on December 6, it will be the third hold time, which might boost buyers' confidence and create a busy market once snow starts to melt. If you're currently in the search of a home, please consider buying now with the 1-year term mortgage. This will help locking in at a lower rate down the line, and lower rates most definitely will arrive in time for mortgage renewals. And now, let's take a closer look at detached home sales in Toronto and surrounding areas. In Toronto, average selling price of detached home in September went up compared to August $120,000 to $1.75 million, 7.7% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went up by 12.4%. The amount of new listings, however, rose to 48% compared to September of last year. It takes on average 15 days for a detached home to be sold in Toronto today. In Vaughan, an average selling price of detached home in September was $1.76 million, 16% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 19%. The amount of new listings went up by 36%. On average, it takes 3 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Vaughan today. Richmond Hill, average selling price of detached home in September was $1.88 million, 1.4% decrease compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 14.6%. The amount of new listings, however, rose to 68%. It takes on average 18 days for a detached home to be sold in Richmond Hill today. An average selling price of a detached home in Mississauga in September was $1.45 million, 2.3% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 13%. However, the amount of new listings rose by 50%. On average, it takes 18 days for a detached home to be sold in Mississauga today. An average selling price of a detached home in Markham in September was $1.76 million, 5.7% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went up by almost 12%. However, look at the amount of listings. It went up by 80% compared to September of last year. On average, it takes 16 days for a detached home to be sold in Markham today. Newmarket, average selling price of a detached home in September was $1.21 million, 6.5% decrease compared to September of last year. 13% decrease in sold properties, but the amount of new listings went up almost 50% compared to September of last year. On average, it takes 17 days for a detached home to be sold in Newmarket today. In Aurora, an average selling price of a detached home in September was $1.63 million, 7.4% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 26%. The amount of new listings also went down compared to September by 3.3%. On average, it takes almost 3 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Aurora today. Innisfil average selling price of detached home in September was $936,000, 4% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 31%. The amount of new listings slightly went up by 2%. On average, it takes 25 days for a detached home to be sold in Innisfil today. Average selling price of detached home in King City in September was $2.47 million, 10.5% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties did not change, but the amount of new listings went up by 63%. On average, it takes 36 days for a detached home to be sold in King City today. Average selling price of a detached home in September in Bradford was $1.06 million. It went down by 5.3% compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 11.7%, but the amount of new listings went up by 71% compared to September of last year. On average, it takes 16 days for a detached home to be sold in Bradford today. In Milton, an average selling price of a detached home in September was $1.32 million, 5.6% decrease compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 17%. The amount of new listings rose by 50% this year. It takes on average 22 days for a detached home to be sold in Milton today. Average selling price of a detached home in Stoufville in September was $1.7 million, 33% increase compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 33%. The amount of new listings went up by 44%. On average, it takes almost 1 month for a detached home to be sold in Stoufville today. Average selling price of a detached home in Barrie did not change from August, but it went up by 4% compared to September of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 55%. The amount of new listings, unlike other cities, went down by 28%. On average, it takes almost 3 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Barrie today. In my opinion, while high interest rates affecting the market nowadays, as many buyers lost interest in real estate, the future population growth will soon spur demand. If you'd like to receive your own personalized sales report about home sales in your neighborhood, please call me at 647-801-3401 or email me at sold@fuadhomes.com. Thanks for watching and see you next month.